All right, well, it is officially noon, so I'll go ahead and ring the bell and get us started. Welcome to the Thursday, March 25th Rotary Club of Newport meeting. I think this is Zoom 40 something, same as my wife's age, I guess. Maybe 44 or so. I didn't look this morning, but Keith, would you do the honors in leading us with the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Keith. Let's see, do we have any guests with us today? I see we have our presenter who will introduce here in just a few minutes, but any other guests? I don't see any. Looks like most of the usual suspects. So just a couple announcements before we get started. First of all, does anyone else have any announcements they'd like to make before we get into things? Sonia.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make an announcement. We're going to be staying on after this Zoom call for the Seize the Day committee. We have just a couple of quick decisions, or really one important decision that we need to make. So anybody who is interested in joining us, please just stay on this line when the meeting's over.
All right, thank you, Sonia. I don't see Amy Thompson or Kathy on. We got some news this week for our youth exchange. And unfortunately, with COVID still spreading pretty rampantly in other countries, more so than even here, Rotary's canceled the youth exchange for 2021 and 2022. So that was kind of disappointing, So the exchange programs will hopefully be back in 2022. So just this next school year, we won't have another inbound student, but hopefully the year after that we will. I know they're anxious to get things resuming, and we are having our RILA camp this summer virtually. So we have 3 students from Newport who will be attending RILA. So at least the youth programs are still going strong, and the 4-way test contest is going on as planned. It's just the youth exchange that's on break for another year. So I saw that Megan Shane posted a picture today from the fairground. She's volunteering over at the COVID clinic, and she mentioned that they're now up to 60 people per half hour. So that's pretty amazing. They're really getting through the ranks there quickly and moving through the eligible groups. So that's really encouraging. Obviously, that'll help us all get back to normal somewhat. Let's see, I talked about youth exchange. Anybody else have any announcements they'd like to make? I see that we have quite a few more people on now than we started with, which is good to see.
Freddie, regarding that vaccine clinic where Megan is working at the fairgrounds today, I got word last evening that there were still slots available, and I was provided a link. If anyone wants that link, share your interest in the chat. The biggest thing that is changing is that group 16B has opened up, and that includes frontline workers in agriculture, seafood, and food processing, and people with 45 to 64 with underlying health conditions. So if that opens the opportunity and eligibility for anyone, I don't know if you can still register, but there's always the possibility, if you have time to amble over there and see if they're doing 60 shots an hour and they don't have all the slots filled up, there's always a possibility that you can talk your way in. So if anyone's interested in that, express interest, and I'll send the link that I have, but I don't know if that link is still valid or not.
Yeah, that's good info. Thanks, Jim. Also, it's worth mentioning that the Siletz Health Clinic is vaccinating anybody and everybody, regardless of regardless of what group they're in or what phase. I guess the tribe gets their vaccines direct from the federal government, so they can, offer that to anyone in the community. I was able to get mine about a week ago Friday with a lot of my coworkers here at Advantage. So Siletz is another good option if you still need a appointment. So I think I'll turn things over to our Sergeant at Arms, Bob.
Well, hello there, Rotarians. Good to see everybody. Clara Little and I are really working on our relationship, and I want to give a special hello to Clara today. Hi, Clara. Clara. Well, that goes to show you. Anyway, I really want to clear the air on this NCAA, what is it, Division I men's tournament or whatever it is that's going on. I am really very impartial. Oh, Brian, but and I just want everyone to know that when the Beavs aren't playing the Ducks, I always root for the Ducks, and I want you guys to know that, and that comes from the heart. And in fact, I have been receiving emails, hundreds of them, from Rotarians. Here's an example of the type of emails I'm getting. Just had to email you this morning about OSU basketball team making it to the final 16. By the way, that's the Oregon team that didn't buy their way in. Go Beavs. And take that, you snooty Ducks. Dan, who was a Beaver believer of the first order, and especially the basketball program, is singing the OSU fight song today in heaven. So that's where Oregon State fans go, is to heaven. So anyway, we've got the air cleared on that. And Dan, Brian, I can't let you get away with that. I'm trying to tell you how impartial I am, and you pull your shirt up and we see your tattooed belly saying Ducks. So what are we going to do about that, Brian?
Well, first, I really want to say thank you for all your impartiality.
It takes a lot.
Drowning in it right now, and it feels so good. It's like a nice warm blanket.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel $10 happy that the Ducks and the Beavers are in the Sweet 16 men's tournament, and another $10 happy that the Ducks are in the women's tournament in the Sweet 16 as well. They played great against Georgia and really earned that next spot.
Yes, and that's part of my being impartial. I'm really happy about the Ducks. Laura, I'm really glad to see you joined us today.
Hi, Bob. I was with my staff.
Remember about 3 weeks ago when I asked you to give me a call?
Yeah, you need me to call you still.
I heard you on the radio this morning. You did a good job.
Thank you. I was on there with Mary Kay talking about Lincoln County Reads.
I'm very aware of that. And I thought you too. I was proud to say those are two Rotarians.
I'll tell Mary Kay that. She's not on today. She's in another meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. But anyway, I thought you did a good job. I bet you were proud of yourself.
It's always fun going on the radio.
How much fun did you have on the radio?
$5.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
Have we got anybody out there that wants to contribute some happy bucks? Somebody? Oh, Sonetta, you're becoming a regular.
I got to spend last weekend with my granddaughter who turned 8. So I'll throw in 8 happy bucks.
Well, that's very special. What'd you guys do? Anything exceptional? Go down on the beach?
I actually went to Portland. So no, it was arcade time because apparently that's what she's into. So we got to play all kinds of fun little arcade games with her. But we won lots of little tickets and she got a really great prize that my son figures cost him about $80 in the end.
I
But
see.
it was
Oh,
fun.
well, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Anybody else out there? Matt, it looked like you were about to raise your hand up.
Well, I was thinking about, the beavers and the ducks,
Yeah.
being in the tournament, and it's all been pretty exciting when, we're shut up with COVID, but there's a lot of great basketball to watch. So I'm just $10 happy to be able to watch all that great basketball.
Well, good. Thank you very much. Yeah, it looks like the weather's going to be kind of cruddy this weekend, so I guess we can all sit inside. Anybody else want anything to say or have anything to say? I thought
Bob,
maybe we would hear something from the Washington group, but they're pretty quiet this time of year.
Hey, Bob, I have something. This
Who
is
said what
Peggy.
now?
This is Peggy.
Oh, hi,
Bob.
Peggy.
How are you?
Good, real good.
I have $20 happy bucks,
Uh-oh.
$10 for Jim's Beavers, and $10 for my beaver ducks. Because I've been fans of both the beavers and the ducks for a very, very long time. So I'm happy, very happy they're both in. And especially the lady ducks, even though the lady beavers didn't make it. But so I'm giving $20. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a little hurtful, but we'll live with it. Thank you very much. Yeah. Mhm. Anybody else got anything they'd like to say? Freddie, you keep on wanting to throw your hand up and just duck away, but go ahead.
Well, I wasn't going to talk about the Ducks, but now that you mention it, I'll throw $10 in for the Ducks men and women and the Beavers men. Congrats to them. But I think Claire was trying to unmute. She was trying to answer you at first, so I thought you might want to circle back to Claire.
Oh, okay. Well, let me get Sylvia first and then.
I'll be $5 happy for the women Ducks calling the NCAA out on that weight room issue and making what was an appalling lack of equality apparent to the country. So good for them, $5 for me. And
Good for you.
yeah.
Thank you very much. Claire, are you out there? Yeah, I don't hear anything from Claire.
Hey, Bob, I've got something.
Oh, I'll bet you do, Guy.
Bob, I've got something for you.
Okay.
I really don't follow basketball much. I haven't been paying attention. It's good to know that these teams are in the Sweet 16. But I do follow football. And we're supposed to play Ohio State in Eugene. And we paid a pretty hefty price for those tickets. As you know, that season was canceled, and so they've replaced that game this year with the dreaded Stony Brook Seawolves.
Oh no.
And I don't know if you've ever seen a duck against the Seawolf, but it's not a good thing to see. And so I'll give $5 for that big upgrade in our football schedule.
Okay, but yeah, I'm a little confused on something, Guy, and I know you can get this squared away for me rather quickly. Now, you were supposed to play OHS or OSU, but the pandemic canceled it, but yet you played OSU and lost. Where am I confused?
I think you were talking about, I don't know, was it baseball?
No.
Because I remember us beating Oregon State 2-1, and I remember our women's softball team beating Oregon State 16-4 just recently. Is that what you were talking about?
I think it's time to turn the meeting back over to Freddie and get on to our presenter. Thank you very much, Rotarians, for your generosity. Freddie, take it away.
All right, thanks, Bob. Nicely done. And Guy is always the Oregon historian, which is good to have on board. I think we'll have a lot more to talk about next week, good or bad. We'll see, I guess. So a few things from today in history. 1954, RCA manufactures the first color television. It had a 12.5-inch screen and sold for $1,000. Today, I think you can pick one up for about 50 bucks on eBay, and they make pretty good boat anchors. 1965, Martin Luther King Jr. leads 25,000 to the state capitol in Montgomery, Alabama. And 1995, boxer Mike Tyson is released from jail after serving 3 years. So all of that on March 25th. So I will go ahead and introduce our guest today. We have a great program and a great speaker, and Sheriff Landers, I'll say just in advance, I got this information off the county website, so I haven't been stalking you or anything. Sheriff Curtis Landers began his career with the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office in 1987. He started as a records clerk and worked his way through the ranks as a corrections officer, patrol deputy, and patrol sergeant. In 2005, he was promoted to the rank of administrative lieutenant, which he served as for 10 years. And in 2015, he was appointed sheriff by the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners. Sheriff Landers has attended the FBI National Academy, OSSA Command College, the DPSST Supervisory and Middle Management courses, and has over 2,000 hours of training in corrections, law enforcement, leadership, and supervision. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sheriff Landers. Welcome.
Great, thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Is it okay if I share my screen?
Sure.
Okay. And you can see that okay? Come up. Okay, this is our annual report from 2020, and I won't read through everything. I'll touch on just some of the highlights of it and look at some of the statistics for you. As you know, my message here, and this is a picture of me with K9 Nix. It was the only member of our office I could actually get close to during the last year without wearing a face covering, and I didn't have to worry about social distancing. So I took advantage of that. And I really thought that was just a great picture with her to be up there. And it's amazing that this is a K9 that 1 minute can be like this and affectionate, next minute can be running 60 miles an hour after a bad guy and pulling him down and biting him and doing everything else that they do. But just incredible K9s. But yeah, I started, you know, as everybody knows, wow, what a challenging year it has been. And I got to say, in 33 years of law enforcement, I can really say that 2020 was the most challenging that I've ever experienced. You know, with starting with COVID, just, you know, a little over a year ago, and still going, you know, some of the procedures we put in place, but just everything that we were dealing with that. And we'll talk a little bit more later about how we had to deal with that in the correctional facility here at the jail. But also then in September, when we were just kind of getting our groove with COVID, then the wildfires up in North County hit. And again, it was, you know, 33 years living on the coast. I know our emergency manager, Jenny Damaris, had prepared us very well for these wildfires. We had wildfire exercises almost every year to prepare for this. But I know in a lot of our minds, including mine, we thought it will never happen here. We'll never have a wildfire here. We're worried more about the tsunami and those type of things. But sure enough, we had it. And you know, the staff, the members, I was up there, just they, again, with a year, I cannot say how dedicated and how much they kept a positive attitude moving forward. I'm just so proud of our members and everything they did throughout the year and continue to do. You know, as I put in here, I tried to write a message, but it just, the emotions, and I couldn't express enough how diligent, dedicated they are to ensuring a safe environment for everyone. And again, they did it with a smile on their face most of the time. And again, that when you could see it without a face covering. But I am honored and humbled to serve and for them and for you in the community. So thank you for allowing me that. One of the things we changed this year, we had an overall mission statement for our sheriff's office, as a lot of offices do, but a lot of our divisions have different mission statements or different duties that they do. So we created mission statements for each one of the division. It wasn't to divide the office at all. I think we're in a place that with one overall mission statement that we really want to focus the attention on what specifically which each division does. So starting with emergency management, we actually added a mission that the Emergency Management Division is committed to leading collaborative countywide efforts, inclusive of all partners in the communities we serve, to ensure capability of obtaining help in an emergency and to protect, mitigate, prepare for, respond to, and recover from emergencies or disasters, regardless of the cause. And our emergency management staff that's directly under us is Jenny Damaris and Samantha Buckley. But in this top picture, we, as we knew this last year, we, for the first time, actually had 2 federal presidential emergency declarations occurring. And obviously they're still going on. We're in recovery for the fire still going on, and COVID's still in a different type of response with the vaccinations that are going on, as some of you mentioned earlier. But in this photo, we got our PIO and other public health members that come over and help us that work for the county. And it's just a great group to have them in place to work emergency management. And I tell you, the things that they did this year, completely amazing in what they did with and continue to do. A couple of pictures here, posse members here helping with the vaccination, and just the number of volunteers that we continue to have in emergency management. I think there's a statistic up here showing the number of hours that we have specific for. Obviously, it's a little bit less this year in 2020 because of COVID, but we still had the need for a number of volunteers. This anywhere from still operating the call center that we had for both the fires and COVID, so citizens can get the questions answered. Helping with, again, at the vaccination clinics, doing a lot of volunteering. Again, we couldn't do it without our volunteers for our office, and they are just extraordinary in the efforts they put in and the time commitments they do. So very extraordinary to have them. Moving on, our patrol division, that's kind of what everybody sees when they think of the sheriff's office. It's our patrol. They're the ones in the cars out patrolling around. Their new mission is the mission that they came up with is the patrol division is committed to professional excellence in providing accredited public safety services for Lincoln County in the form of law enforcement patrol, criminal investigations, community and animal services, and community partnerships. We're committed to developing and retaining talented professional deputies who demonstrate the highest standards of performance, police practices, and accountability. And again, a little bit of information. This will be posted on our website, or you can get a copy of it. So I'm not trying to rush through it, but it's large enough. I want to make sure that I consider your time during this lunch hour presentation. But again, unprecedented as far as what they did. The COVID protocols first hit. Again, just as now you look around and everyone's wearing a face covering. It's just like a seatbelt now. But when that first hit, it was just like when the seatbelt law went into effect in 1990. People weren't wearing it. Why does that apply to me? Why, there was everything that you can imagine going through the deputies and citizens' minds about wearing it. But now it's common practice, and we understand the need for that. There's a lot of that controversy at first. Who's going to enforce if somebody's not wearing the face covering law? Who's, the social distancing, and a lot of it was put on us. We weren't the ones creating the laws. We were the ones enforcing them, and that was difficult to take something that was, a lot of times politically motivated, and really try to help do that. But our deputies really took an education first method of doing that. Citations were way off in there, but a lot of times when people hear that enforcement piece, they think that means somebody's going to get a citation. And it really was, couldn't have been further from the truth. It was really education. It was going to these events and saying, hey, explaining it. I'm wearing a face covering. You should. It protects us. And a lot of that they took in consideration for that. And then again, the devastating fires up in North County. Search and rescue volunteers came in. The evacuations were just, again, nothing I could ever imagine that first 48 hours. It was a highly challenging event that, with notifying the citizens. And one thing I can say is that no citizens died as a result of that, which is surprisingly amazing, because when I was up there and just going through what the challenges as far as getting the evacuation and getting the notices from emergency management on the notification system, the area that we had to cover, how fast the fire was moving, I was just deeply concerned that we were going to have a loss of life somewhere once we went through and researched it and and investigated further. But we didn't. And that is definitely a testament to the emergency management as far as getting those notifications out and the deputies going door to door. And just with their diligence, I mean, it was hard to, their safety and how that fire was moving was incredible, to where I finally had to give the order to get out. And it was tough for deputies to get out knowing that they may have missed some houses as far as going to those doors and just make sure somebody wasn't there knocking on them. But they got out knowing it was safety. But I finally had to issue that order to just absolutely get out of the area because it was getting so dangerous. We were starting to get deputies possibly trapped in areas that they couldn't get out. And, again, nothing like I've ever seen over the 33 years that I've been here, but they did a great job. Looking at some statistics, our calls for service was down in 2020, 23,759 total calls for service. That's everything. That's self-initiated activity. That's anytime you pick up the phone and call for a deputy, that's all included. And they were down because mainly, when we were back in March and April, we weren't doing any self-initiated activity. It was only response. And so, that's probably why it's down, even though, 2019 was down from 2018. So we're on a trend down. That's good. We'll see what really 2021 brings us when we go forward. Our response times, looking at our response times these response times are just for our priority calls, priority 1 calls. We talk about those domestic disturbances, fights, robberies, this type of thing that we are immediately responding to in our patrol areas, which is outside the incorporated areas with law enforcement coverage outside of Lincoln City, Toledo, and Newport. And you'll see Wallport and Siletz were our 2 lowest. Shortest amount of average response time at Wallport being just a little over 9 minutes, and Siletz being over 11 minutes. And a lot of times I get questioned, why is that significantly lower than most of the other areas around the county? And I believe we contribute that to the fact that Wallport and Siletz both have contracts with us to provide 80 hours of extra service in each of those areas. So obviously we're there more, and if we're in the area more when those calls come in, our response time is going to be reduced compared to other areas around the county. So and I always hear, what's the benefit of having contract areas in law enforcement? Aren't you going to respond to calls anyhow? And the answer is yes, but I think it's, if we're going to Depot Bay or Wallport or Yachats when it's around 17, 18 minutes, and I can tell you if you have contract with us, it's going to be 9 minutes. That's significantly less time that we're responding to emergency calls. So there is a huge impact of why we respond to that. As far as some statistics, mainly down as far as our assaults and burglaries. Vandalisms were up a little bit. I don't know that. DUIs, again, not doing self-initiated activities in other areas, were really down over the year. And again, I think it was interesting. March and April last year, I think even the bad guys weren't out doing anything. They were all in their houses and not out doing anything. So it was very slow during those times and really contributed to COVID. But things are back to normal now. We're seeing crime levels, back to normal. So again, we'll really take a look at evaluating 2021 and what that means to the overall statistics. Even with the challenging year, we were able to start providing 2 new programs that we hadn't done before. One of them being the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program. We call that LEAD. It's really a pre-arrest harm reduction diversion program. It's really designed to connect law enforcement with high utilizers of the criminal justice system. These are really minor, that don't have a victim attached to them type crimes. Maybe your drug offenses, vandalisms, maybe some trespassing issues. And what it does is it gives the deputy an opportunity to put somebody into a program instead of taking them to jail. And it's really, again, utilized for those high users, the people that are in that revolving door that just continually come to jail and then released to just go back and committing these low-level criminal activities again in our community. So it's trying to get them. Usually, it's a substance abuse disorder, maybe a mental illness, other behavioral health issue. That if we can get them into a program and it's immediate, the choice is really on the suspect and the deputy or officer from other areas to decide. Okay, is it best to try to put that person in this program? And they're immediately gone, regardless what time of day it is, to get help on that and really identify what it is that they can do to what's their barrier Why are they committing crimes to begin with? Is it because of substance use or something else? What we're learning is especially with individuals that have a behavioral health issue, a mental illness, or substance use disorder, the deterrent of going to jail is just not there. And so we really need to try to identify something else to keep them, because all we're doing is creating a revolving door, and we're trying to reduce that. Community outreach and mental health enhancement team. This is our comment team. This is where we paired up a deputy with a mental health counselor, a clinical counselor, to basically go out in the community and try to reduce that crisis mode. Well, a lot of times we respond to crisis, people trying to harm themselves, trying to harm others. Really, it's a behavioral health issue. And for a long time, jail's been the only place we've been able to take somebody for this. And all we do is see their condition deteriorate over time. And a lot of counties have a response team like this, and they actually respond to that initial crisis. What we've done, since we only have one team right now, is to take that further back to really try to prevent that crisis from happening to begin with. So they review a lot of reports, a lot of from around the county, including inside the cities, and try to go out and talk to individuals to try to see what the problem is, so that they can try to reduce that crisis from ever happening to begin with, so that individuals aren't going to the emergency departments and aren't coming to our jails. It's been a huge success. This team has done outstanding work. And the only thing I can say about it is we really need more. There's a lot of work for them to do. But again, they're putting a lot of people into different programs and referrals to other services that are keeping them from ever contacting law enforcement outside of that. So great team, great approach. And we're really happy that we were able to team up with our Lincoln County Behavioral Health team and to do this. So it's really working well. A lot of times people want to talk about, especially over the last year, where there's been a lot of national recognition, or not recognition, but a response to police reform. So a lot of times I like to talk about our use of force in patrol. You heard how many calls for service, and like in 2020, we had 2,970 cases. Out of that, 993 arrests were made. And then we look at the actual use of force, where we actually, pointing a firearm is a use of force. If we have to point a firearm at somebody, depending on what the situation is. We did that 7 times out of all those cases. We deployed our taser 2 times. We had to display it 4 times. Physical control, which is actually just as little as just absolutely having to touch somebody to get them handcuffed or under control, 20 times. We didn't do pepper spray at all this year. 40 millimeter is a large impact weapon. It's a less lethal force. Instead of actually, it's used in situations where there may be a need to escalate to firearm, but it's usually safely able to get somebody into custody. And then we also had, as we talked about canines earlier, 2 canine bites. So really, depending on all that contact that we have with the public, for our agency, very, very low use of force. We do go through each and every one of the use of force situations that we have. And it's reviewed by our team, a supervisor, a training supervisor, and then ultimately the division commander, to make sure there's no trends, something we need to do additional training on, or if there's an issue with the deputy that we have to address individually. We review the body worn camera and mobile vehicle recording to make sure everything is appropriate use of force, or even if it's appropriate use of force, maybe how it could have prevented from further communications to begin with. Again, prevent that necessary from doing it, even if it was justified. Could there have been communications that we could have done earlier? I think our best tool that we have is our mouth and being able to talk to somebody, and we need to make sure that we're using that appropriately also. We had a couple of retirements from patrol. Sergeant David Boyce, our Senior Deputy David Boyce, retired, and Sergeant Mark Meister, and we also, one of our canines, Canine Bonnie, retired this year also. So a couple of good retirements of longstanding law enforcement careers. Support services, these are really the people you probably hear little about, but they are the backbone. They keep everything running smoothly. They're like anything in the backbone. They just silently go about doing amazing things and all the work that they do. Their mission is, the Support Services Division is committed to providing public services to Lincoln County's community members, cooperating agencies, and a variety of external entities with the highest level of integrity, efficiency, and compassion. They take in lots of evidence, and they do let's get down to statistics here, what they do. Here's our property and evidence, but CHL, anytime a concealed handgun license is issued, which were up in 2020, and we had 913 in the process we do there, they do that. They serve our civil process, our criminal subpoenas, the foreclosures, we do that. Sheriff's sales on foreclosed properties was down to only 8 in 2020, and that was because of, again, COVID and the moratorium on foreclosures. We're hearing now that's starting to pick up statewide because obviously if it was moratorium is going to be lifted, and there's going to be a lot of foreclosures that possibly could be coming through. They do fingerprinting for the public, and the STR is that stands for short-term rental applications. So you've heard of the vacation rentals and short-term rentals. They do those licensings for the areas outside of the city. So again, just a tremendous group that keeps everything running. Talking about corrections or jail, their mission is the Lincoln County Jail is committed to serving our community by providing a safe, secure, and healthy jail environment where everyone is treated with dignity, empathy, and respect. Again, quite a turn for 2020. Our capacity is 161 adults in custody. This year we were down to as low as in the 60s, 70s because we weren't accepting a lot of bookings. We were citing releasing a lot of individuals in the field. Instead of bringing them to jail, we're only bringing really severe person crimes to jail. We are still doing that, trying to make sure that we don't get COVID into the facility. We had to make sure there were a couple of our pods, a couple of our areas that were reserved just for if we had someone in the facility contract COVID, and we'd have to isolate them. And we also needed to make sure, especially initial, a lot of times our return now and our testing is going a lot quicker now. And but early on, it was taking up to a week before we were testing everybody that came in before we put them in the general population. To date, since COVID started, we actually have only had 2 people test positive in our jail. There has been no, and they were completely separated, so they weren't even, it wasn't contributing to each other, and it did not spread to any of our staff or any of our other adults in custody. So great systems that our jail staff put in place to make sure that we didn't have that contraction in the correctional facility. The state prison systems was a whole different ball game. They had severe outbreaks going through their systems, and I'm just glad it didn't hit here. We also institute some programs in there, including tablets for adults in custody. They're able to check out tablets when they're using the day room. These tablets have a lot of educational modules on them that can help them with GED studies, any kind of vocational training, their stress and anger management, as well as cognitive and behavioral therapy. There are also games on there to help pass the time, but they have to go through a lot of training and studies for their things that they're proactive to when they get out, not coming back. But it's turned out to be a huge success. They want to have the tablets. When I go through the jail and talk to some of the adults in custody, they really appreciate having the opportunity while they have time in the facility to learn about things, maybe get their GED or other vocational studies. So they are really enjoying that. And the tablets are actually provided to the AICs at no cost to taxpayers. We use from the commissary revenue that we get from the inmates when they buy certain things off their commissary. And so it really is a good tool that is not costing the taxpayers any, and has proven to be a benefit to the adults in custody. Excuse me. Some statistics, obviously you heard the bookings were way lower. We had 3,421 in 2019. That was down to 1,682 in 2020. One of the key statistics that I wanted to share here and make a little bigger here are released early stats. This is one that I've been watching for a number of years since I became sheriff. It was at a high of 701, and this is people that are being forced released early because they didn't serve their sentence or even on pretrial status, and just released back out in the community without any type of plan. It was something I knew was an indicator that we needed to reduce. It was part of the revolving door. This last year, we were down to 8. Now, we don't really know how that measures up with COVID and as far as not doing those bookings. But again, our population was lower. We had to have lower population. So there was still the possibility that we could have those. One of the key indicators that I can say that wasn't necessarily directed to COVID is we had, prior to COVID, we'd actually had one, and that was on New Year's Day from a New Year's Eve arrest. that we had to force release to get the population down. But there were 0 up to COVID, and then we just had a scattering of the other 7 over the year. So that's a real, again, we started pretrial release a couple of years ago, and pretrial release really does by assessment tools, determine the risk of individuals, whether or not they're going to show up for court or they're going to reoffend in the community. If the risk is low on that, then they are released with a plan. They check into our pretrial specialists, and it's proven to be successful as far as having people not reoffending and showing up for court, but not also taking a jail bed, which relies on us to release early because of our population. So it's really more efficiently managed the population that we have. And if we hadn't had pretrial release during this COVID situation, I think we'd be in a lot worse condition than we are now as far as, again, crimes going back up, even with a lower jail population. So I'm really looking at this as an opportunity, the COVID being an opportunity to evaluate how keeping the jail population where it is, how it was managed, and to obviously to the future when COVID restrictions are released and what we do with the population from there. So really trying to look at some of these things that were huge challenges of using it as an opportunity too. Some of the corrections use of force you can see on there. A lot of things were down, physical restraint was up, but really inside the jail, way down the restraint chair, that's one of the things that tools that we have down from 20 down to 2. A lot of the corrections deputies say the environment in the jail with a lower population is just better. We don't have any cells that are multiple housing places. So everything's a single cell now, which traditionally before that, we'd have some cells that had 4 adults in custody in. And you can imagine putting 4 people into a small area is just not good. I mean, it's just, these aren't people that asked to be in custody and they didn't ask for their cellmates. So having single cells has proven that with the use of force statistics actually a lot lower too. And lastly, I want to talk about our animal shelter. A lot of people don't know, but our animal shelter is under the sheriff's office. There is a taxing district that funds the animal shelter and the animal services deputies that are under patrol. And the animal shelter is committed to providing a safe haven for our community's animals by protecting animal welfare and public safety, rescuing, reuniting, rehabilitating, rehoming animals in need, helping keep pets and families together, and promoting responsible pet guardianship through licensing and education. As a lot of you are aware, we're getting in the process of building a new animal shelter, thanks to the partnership with the city of Newport for some property down by the Newport airport. And the RFP is going to go out, I think, in about a week to get an architect and a planning person on board to help construct that. The county has put aside some funding to help construct a new animal shelter to get them out of their temporary location, which is over on the Commons property by the road department. So we're really looking forward to that. That's going to be the things that are going to be coming up for the animal shelter in this next year. Obviously with COVID, the statistics are lower there as far as even licenses sold. A number of volunteer hours we were able to do with keeping people separated. We had a lot of small area, but they still did a great job of trying to rehome animals and get them back to where their families if possible. Another event with the fires, they were another division that was instrumental in having their plan, emergency plan on board to help with all the animals that we had, because there were a number of animals that were left behind by owners up in that evacuation area that our animal services picked up, and with help of the animal shelter, we're helping to rehome and get them back to their owners. So just again, another tremendous group that worked for us, and I couldn't be more prouder of the efforts that they do. So they did great work again this year, and that's really it. And I think this picture, obviously before COVID, kind of just an excellent picture with a child, one of our sergeants doing some little balloon function things that have functions. So I think that's just kind of, again, just being community involvement. And I just love this picture. It kind of sums up everything for us. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you could have.
So I have a quick question, Sheriff Landers. On the last election, we had that measure passed that reduced the drug offenses to, I think no jail time. Has that contributed to the reduced population in the jail? Seems like we had a lot of offenders in there for meth and drugs and that sort of thing.
Yeah, Measure 110. I think it will. That went into effect in just recently. So it really, we aren't seeing the reduction for 2020 as far as that's concerned. But I know we will. It's one thing we're definitely following. And again, it's one of those culture shifts that we're going to have to work on and see. I'm obviously we're the first state to do this, but other countries have done similar things. It's I kind of have really, it's going to be difficult, but I'm optimistic it's going to do the results that the voters want it to do. I think the whole idea is to help people. I'm fully in support of helping people and getting the programs, especially if it's a drug addiction that we need to reduce. I'm just a little concerned that there's really, we don't have any teeth there. I would have probably, in my opinion, done more diversionary type programs to where we could have actually had that in place. Again, LEAD is another one that it's probably going to affect that program because that's usually touching somebody that may have a drug offense, and we were trying to get somebody in a program without that arrest. So I'm all for this type of process, but again, a little bit optimistic and hopefully that it gets the results we're looking at. But I imagine there'll be challenges. I know there's a legislative work group that's going through to help put a lot of the systems in place that we can go through, and it does connect people. Instead of paying, it's $100 fine, or you can go through an evaluation process. I know the $100 isn't much, but I'm still pushing people and deputies to encourage that they go through not paying the $100 and go through that assessment to see if they can get some help. I think that's the overall goal that we're trying to achieve.
Oh, thank you. I see, Bob, you had your hand up, I think.
Sheriff Landers, when you retire a canine, how do you deactivate that dog?
Yeah, so this was our first one since we brought back our canine program several years ago, and it was Canine Bonnie who was our first canine. What we do is we have a program in place where we basically, because it's a canine, it's a pet to a lot of people, but it's actually county property. What we do is we basically surplus, and Canine Bonnie doesn't like when we refer to her as surplus, but we basically surplus her through the county process as an item. And what we did is we turned Canine Bonnie over to her handler, in this case, Deputy Aiken, and she'll basically live her life out with him. He since has another Canine Ghost now that's just got activated, but he still has Canine Bonnie that's now a member of their family. And we actually set aside a fund through our foundation to help offset the cost of any vet care or anything that he may have. So we accept donations through that from our citizens, and any medical treatment or anything that comes up, and just the care. But she's now just, he says that she gets up on the couch now and does a lot of things that just normal pets do, and she's pretty happy, and they're happy to have her.
Any other questions for Sheriff Landers? All right, I don't see any. So with that, thank you, Sheriff Landers, for joining us. Wow, 33 years of service to the county. I think that's incredible. And we're fortunate to have you, that's for sure. So Rotary's been committed to stopping polio in the world. And as a thank you for joining us and speaking to us today, we're going to vaccinate 50 children against polio in your name. And thanks again, and keep up the good work. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I started when I was 5, so 33 years isn't that bad. So thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and hope you come back and see us again soon. So I'll turn it over to our secretary, Jim.
Thank you, President Freddie. And today is another good Zoom meeting with a great program. Thank you very much, Sheriff Landers. We started out with over 50% organic participation. We were at 29 of 57. Once I applied makeups, we're at 38 of 58 for a 67.2% attendance today. Our membership incentive, it's unfortunate that this person missed it because she's out working hard, getting shots in arms and helping the future of our community at the vaccination clinic. Megan Shane was our membership incentive, and so I think
we ought to give it to her. I think we should give it to her. She's on behalf of Rotary, giving people shots.
Okay, well, Mark knows better than I, but I believe that's $10 this week. But that's a great idea, Sylvia. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sonia for the 50-50 drawing and her fancy spinning wheel.
All right, thank you, Jim. And we have the wheel ready to go. We have $45 in the pot today. So the big winner will get $22.50. Oh, gotta hit the share button. There we go. Looks like Jeffo.
All right, congratulations, Jeff. John, do we have a social media award today?
We do, and just like Sonia, I put in all of our names in a randomizer, and for 3 weeks now in a row, it's a miracle. Jim Wendell won again, 3 weeks in a row. So
Nice.
Give that to the Seize the Day, please.
Yeah, and yeah, that's right. With respect to mine, Sonia, give that to Seize the Day too, please.
Oh, thank you both.
Thank you.
So on the topic of Seize the Day, I think Sonia wanted to have a brief meeting just following this. So those involved with the Seize the Day, go ahead and stick with us for 10 or 15 minutes following the meeting. And any other last minute announcements? All right, so next Thursday, we have another good one. We have Joanne Kittle joining us to talk about the Amanda Trail, which is a trail in Cape Perpetua with a lot of history. Goes back to some pretty neat Native American tie-in, so that should be a good one next Thursday. And let's see, Guy, would you be kind enough to take us out with the 5-way test?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, the 4-way test of the things we think Sarah do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And 5, is it fun, fun, fun till your daddy takes the T-bird away?
All right, thank you, Guy. Nicely done, and see everybody next Thursday. Have a great weekend.